Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews. And today we're giving you guys our first impressions of the new releases from Job for a Cowboy, Amaranthe, Borknagar, and Austrian Death Machine. So it is a big day for metal today. Lots of different stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Different sounding stuff. And we're going to start it off with the new album from Job for a Cowboy. This is Moon Healer, their first album in like 9 or so years.
Been a while.
Been a long time. This is definitely one of the most hyped albums of the year. 100%.
I would
Like
say
J-Pack
so.
is back. Like,
Yeah.
that's huge, right?
Yeah.
And we did check out all 3 singles that they dropped.
Right.
All the music videos, which were really cool looking. The songs were good. And I'd say they're still good. I enjoyed this album. One of the biggest things that jumped out at me at first was the bass tone.
Yeah.
Very, very clear tone, and I like that this bass is playing a lot of cool parts. It's not like a very in the background kind of thing. It feels like the bass is a lot more of an active member than most bass in metal, and I like that. And it kept jumping out in multiple songs, and I enjoyed it every single time I heard that. There's this little drum break that happens before the guitar solo in Beyond the Chemical Doorway. Super duper cool, and the solo is also really cool. This album just overall has a lot of really good solos. And then it has a really cool transition into Etched into Oblivion. I like that as well. We talked a little bit before about kind of what we were thinking, and you mentioned that this album is a bit more on the progressive side, and of course it is. The way I kind of saw it when I was hearing it, and I kind of made this note when I was listening to The Sun Gave Me Ashes, So I Sought Out the Moon. It's like a more progressive Cattle Decapitation, but less grindy. So,
Yeah.
because Cattle does sometimes kind of wall sound kind of stuff.
Like
so it's
heavy
like
blast beats, yeah.
yeah, so it's like you tone that down and then make it more progressive and more rhythmically sophisticated, and you get this. And I think that's really cool. Like I would never think to compare to something to Cattle and say it's more progressive. Like that's just an interest. Like I've never had that comment about music before. So that's a cool, unique thing that I noticed. And that song also has a really good solo. And it's cool that it kind of feels like it could end at one point and then it just keeps going after that. And then there's a second mini solo to end the song, which is also really cool. I feel like this album has a lot of depth to it, and there's a lot of really cool soundscapes. Like you're really going on a journey with the sound of this album.
Yeah.
Based on one listen, it kind of felt like a lot of the songs were kind of doing a similar thing. That being said, it feels like, if I were to listen to it like even more and more and more, then I'd be able to identify things a lot better.
There's a lot to unpack, kind of.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack with this album.
Yeah, I enjoyed my first listen with this album as well. As TV Fish said, we're hyped about the album. We like the singles a lot. Just to pair it a couple things, the bass presence on this album is really good. It's not overly prominent, but it's you could definitely tell where it is, and you could tell it's doing some cool stuff, which is always appreciated. Again, to pair it with TV Fish said, the solos on this album stand out. A lot of the songs have really tasty solos on them. And a lot of the times I'll just be sitting there listening to it and, I'm kind of like, I'm digging it or whatever. And then all of a sudden a solo will kick in and I'm like, oh shit, this is the juicy stuff. My gripe with it is that they always feel too short. I always want them to last longer, but I mean, it is what it is. You can't have everything, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned a Cattle Decapitation comparison, and I agree with it now that you're mentioning it. I never thought about that, but you're right. I do see that comparison there. But for me, this sounded, I was reminded a lot of the Black Dahlia murder, but maybe more progressive.
I could see that.
But it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of the musical stylings and stuff like that I found on this album that I've kind of heard on different Black Dahlia albums. And in Fury as well, I kind of heard that as well. But I also think in Fury sounds a lot like Black Dahlia Murder. So they're kind of all in the same grouping for me. But it's really good. So I had a good time with it. Some highlight tracks for me, just to put this out there. Etched in Oblivion was good. The Agony Seeping Storm and the Forever Rot, all highlights for me. The Sun Gave Me Ashes, So I Sought Out the Moon, I thought it was a fantastic name for a song. So I put extra focus on it when I listened to it, thinking it was gonna blow me away. And unfortunately it didn't. That was a little bit underwhelming for me. But again, on one listen, it's hard to really take everything in at once. So
Especially with an album that sounds like this one.
yeah, exactly. It's 8 tracks, 39 minutes, and there's a lot of stuff packed in there. So overall, on first impressions, pretty good.
So moving on next, we got Quad Brutal by Austrian Death Machine. We checked out some of the videos for this album that dropped, and they were all very entertaining. The songs were fun, and I think this album is fun. Every single song has some kind of feature, but most of them are Craig Goliath, who we did see in some of the videos. I found early on that the partial clean parts of this album did a good job at balancing between that and the heavier stuff, because I feel like without those, the album would start to get a little bit samey upon itself, and it wouldn't really have much to really distinct itself track by track. But with stuff like that and choruses like those, it works out that way. Because, like for example, the track Conquer felt kind of similar to No Pain, No Gain, but then the solo in that one kind of sold me on that one being its own entity. And my favorite track is Judgment Day, which is the track with Ricky Hoover from Of Sulphur on it. And I want to say that, I don't remember specifically, but I want to say that in one of our reactions I said they should get Ricky Hoover for this because he's huge as well. Turns out they did.
Yeah.
They were listening. And love that song. I love the way that the intro goes, that you got the Arnold voice like, oh, what is this going on? No! And it's like, it's a storm coming, but it's like the intro of the song. The band is the storm that's coming. And then it goes into that intro, which I thought was really, really cool, creative, and entertaining. And then the riff after the intro is done is just super awesome. Like that song went straight into my playlist. Thought it was sick. Definitely the large highlight of the album. Now, on the topic of Arnold, the Arnold part of Don't Be Lazy is funny, but I'm not sure if on repeated listens I would still enjoy it, because he essentially stops the song and says it's not brutal enough, you gotta go faster.
Yeah.
And then they do, which is really funny, but let's say you're listening to this album a bunch, you could get tired of that. It's like, yeah, the song's on. Oh, he stopped the song. What the heck, man?
If I'm not mistaken, didn't we react to that song? Didn't I mention, like, I hope that part isn't in the actual song, and then somebody commented saying, no, it is?
Yeah, you
I think it was the drummer that actually commented on the video saying, no, that part's in the song.
Which is, it's still funny, it's just, it makes me wonder, like, if I were to listen to that song a bunch, would that wear on me? Or not, maybe not. Maybe it's fine, I don't know. I've only heard the album one time.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say at this point. But this band, they're known for those little quirky, like little Arnold segments in their songs.
For sure. No,
Most times they're at the beginning.
It's a hallmark for this band, and it is really entertaining.
It is. Yeah, so I had fun listening to this album too. As TV Fish said, it's a fun album. I've liked everything this band's put out. The other 3 albums are all great as well. Fun to listen to. Just lots of high energy, great riffs, great solos. Whatever. So this was just more of that, right? So nothing really like jumped out at me, or they didn't reinvent the wheel or do anything completely mind-blowing. It's just more good Austrian Death Machine, which I can't complain about, right? Gotta put it on, gonna like it. A couple songs that stand out for me were Don't Be Lazy. I think it's got the best riffs on the album, right? I agree with TV Fish, that one part where how it stops the song, I'm a little bit iffy about that, but I could probably get over it because the riffs are so good, right? The riffs are good all over the place. That one just stands out. Another one that stands out to me is track number 9, Meat Grinder. This was just nice, fast, raw energy, right? Again, a lot of the songs have those qualifications, but some of them just a little more than others. So those are just a couple highlights. But yeah, good stuff from Austrian Death Machine. I'll definitely be checking out again. It's good, it's good background music, it's good workout music, it's good whatever you want kind of music.
Yeah, it's good, like, general strong metal stuff. You just want some hard metal, like, this is a great album to put on.
Can't miss.
One small funny thing to mention is that the Arnold part in Don't Be Lazy, he stops and says, no, speed it up, make it more brutal. Then in I Never Quit, he says, wait a minute, slow it down, make it more brutal. Like, now slow it down. But it's cool that when he does that near the end, and then they do like a deathcore breakdown, which I think is a creative way of, Arnolding your way into a deathcore breakdown.
Yeah, so, that was creative, yeah.
That was cool. So up next is Fall by Borknagar. Now, we did check out one song from this album. That was Nordic Anthem. We weren't really huge on that song. It didn't feel like it really hyped us up for this record, so we were a little concerned going in. That being said, I think the rest of the album does raise up beyond that song.
Yeah.
I think Nordic Anthem itself works a little bit better on this album being after the first track, which is Summit. I think Summit has a lot more of the energy I come to expect from this band.
Yeah.
And it works out that Nordic Anthem is a bit of a, chill song, to say the least, after that. So that works out. The song Afar is kind of what I originally expected from a song like Nordic Anthem. It's got the energy, but it's still a bit slower until the double kick is there that kind of speeds up the pace, even though it's still kind of a slower song. But one thing that kind of felt weird, and this is one thing that's difficult about listening to so many different albums just in succession, it kind of felt like this album, for me, would hit a little bit differently if I didn't just listen to Quad Brutal right before. Because they're such radically different sounding albums, so when you have Quad Brutal in your mind, and that's kind of where your brain is set, and then you 180 with a band like Borknagar, it's a lot more difficult to adjust to that. But by the time I got to a song like Moon, I think I was well adjusted for this album. Now, Moon is actually, I believe, the third single, second or third. It came after Nordic Anthem. I wish this song came when Nordic Anthem did. I think this song would be way better to hype someone up for the album, because I listened to that song and thought, if my first taste of this new album was this song, I would have been instantly sold, because Moon is awesome.
I agree.
That song goes back and forth between calm and energetic in ways that makes it feel so natural. They do this huge build up to the same drum groove you hear in Up North, which was very, very funny, thinking, oh, I know this, because I know that song from the last record. So I thought that was awesome, and that song just really, really stood out as the best one on the record. I also think The Wild Lingers is a really good softer track placed near the end of the record, I guess the ballad position. I thought that was a nice track, so overall I thought it was a pretty good album, and I'm glad that they passed my expectations, because the expectations were brought a little bit low from hearing Nordic Anthem, so I'm glad that the album is better than what I thought it would be.
Yeah, again, a lot of the same thoughts as TV Fish on this one. My expectations were low because of Nordic Anthem. We both had the same kind of feelings about it, but I listened to Moon and I was like, holy crap, this is the single that they should have released first. What a great song. Just, the singing's really good. The guitars just hit the right spots. Really good stuff. I felt like Nordic Anthem might have been a good album closer. It has like kind of it felt like the end of something. So having it at track 2, I think, hurts the album as well. It's just kind of like down-tempo folk. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. There's some really good stuff on this album when it comes to the black metal elements, the folk elements, and just kind of the duality of those two things, because you have black metal screaming contrasting with really nice cleans. It really just suits the band and gives them kind of like their own real solid personality. So songs like Afar is a good example of this happening. That's track number 3. My biggest issue for this album, so I like the first half aside from Nordic Anthem. After that, the album started to slip on me a little bit, and I'm not sure why exactly that happened. It might have been because maybe I lost focus or something, I'm not sure. But other than a few, good riffs and some highlight vocal moments, the second half of the album seemed a little bit just forgettable to me. But I'm wondering if I were to listen to it in reverse and listen to the second half first, if I'd have a different opinion, I don't know. But still, overall, pretty enjoyable. I definitely added Moon to the playlist right away, and I'll probably give this album more spins, and I think there's more there to be discovered. Because I feel like this is an interesting band. I feel like it's a unique band. I feel like they got a really clean, polished sound for what they do. And I like the aspect of blending that black metal with the folk metal and kind of just infusing those and creating a cool, unique sound. That's really cool.
So last up on our list for today is The Catalyst by Amaranthe. I've heard of this band, but I've never actually listened to them until today, so I didn't know what to expect. Something in my mind was thinking, is this a metalcore band? I'm not entirely sure, but like I said, I hadn't heard them before, so I really didn't know. And the first thing I noticed is a lot of heavy use of synthesizer, and I think, well, okay, this is, the riff that it opens with is really cool, and you got all these, electronic influenced sounds and synthesizers. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, and then I found that quickly this album started to kind of show its personality to me, which was just kind of a very hooky, it is very accessible, but it kind of, to me, fell to just more of the generic side of things for me personally. I didn't really find that many songs were grabbing me. However, there are a lot of different vocal voices happening on this album, and every single one is great. I think the vocal performance of this album from everyone is amazing. And it's definitely the highlight of the album. It's something that's consistently great throughout every single song. Thoroughly enjoyed the vocals, thoroughly in my head thinking, wow, these voices are great. They sound very, very nice. But I was just getting to a point where almost every song had some like easy hook that kind of felt like it was really trying to drag me in, and I just wasn't really feeling it. One song I liked for its uniqueness on the album was Damnation Flame. I liked the use of harpsichord and orchestra on just that song, which makes it stand out as a unique piece. I thought that was kind of cool. And I just generally, as the album was going on, was getting less interested. It just wasn't hitting the mark for me. And you know, maybe if I didn't save this album for last, because like I said, when you have other albums in your ear right before you put on something that sounds completely different, it can definitely influence your headspace.
Yeah.
So maybe I wasn't in the headspace for this today, but it just didn't really feel like there was much there. Although I can tell that everyone involved is capable of doing something great. And there were some riffs here and there that I liked, but then it kept coming back to, you know, a hook that I wasn't taking, I guess, the proverbial bait, if you will.
Fair enough. You know what? For an album as accessible as this, I actually enjoyed it more than I normally would, I think. And I'm not exactly sure what ingredient they had in there that made me enjoy it. But you're right. The vocals on this album are really strong. They have, you know, a male vocalist and female vocalist. And then I looked up and read that there was actually 3 vocalists. So I'm guessing it's 2 males and a female. Maybe a harsh and a clean male and then the clean female. But either way, they're all performing very well and they feed off each other very well, and their sections are balanced out very well. I just really like that. It was a really good element. I felt like one of the vocals on the male side was reminding me a lot of Wayne's Static in certain songs, and having the electronic elements infused in the music was giving me a lot of Static X vibes as well, which also surprises me because you're a much bigger Static X fan than I am. So I'm hearing that and I'm thinking the whole time TV Fish is probably gonna love this. And then you come and tell me you didn't really like it. It makes me wonder, like, was I really hearing what I thought I heard or what? But it's just interesting how you hear certain things and then you never know what the other person's hearing.
I mean, consider, you know, for JFAC, I was hearing Cattle Decap, you were hearing Inferi and Black Dahlia.
Yeah, so yeah, it can go all sorts of ways. So yeah, the dual male-female vocals I think was a highlight. Overall, it's pretty standard rhythmically, like a lot of like 4 on the floor kind of grooves, which are fun. They're not anything like mind-blowing, but you know, it's like you mentioned the songs being hooky, and they are, but I don't hate that. Like it's something that there's something feel good about it. There's something where you can just kind of put it on and kind of just have fun with it.
There is, but I just think some will hit and some won't. You know,
an example of one that hits for me is Outer Dimensions, track number 10. That song was one where the hook was really like, I was like, this is actually really good. Like the rest of the song is like not doing much for me, but the hook is on point. To the point where I could probably add it to a playlist and be fine with it coming on a shuffle or a rotation or whatever. I would also like to say track number 7, Stay a Little While, was a ballad. And I'm not normally keen on ballads. I've had my ballads in the past that I've liked. This one I thought was pretty good for a ballad. It actually stood out to me and I was like, this is actually a really nice song. It's actually a pretty good song. It's well performed, well sang, and all that stuff. So overall, I think it was a decent album. I don't know if I'm gonna revisit it much. I'll definitely give it another listen towards the end of the year. Just to kind of recap and, you know, do the revisits like we always do for albums. But I didn't hate it. I thought it was overall fine, and I think there's an audience for this stuff for sure.
Anyway, considering we've spoken about all 4 of these albums, I think it's a no-brainer for us to review Moon Healer by Job for a Cowboy. So that is the album we are going to be listening to non-stop for the entire week, and we will be back next week to give you our final thoughts on that album. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments, what is your favorite release of the day? We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm TV Fish.
And I'm Vile Self.
We'll see you guys later.